Federal officials say the weather conditions expected this summer may lead to greater wildfire risk. Above normal temperatures, along with the drought conditions across parts of the country, could contribute to a bad wildfire season. The CBC's Marianne Dimain has more on what officials are saying.
This was the third briefing of the season from federal officials, including the Minister of Emergency Preparedness, giving us a sense of the wildfire season so far across Canada and what is in store as we head into the summer months that are expected to be quite hot, in fact, hotter than average. Now, according to federal officials, there are currently 69 active wildfires across Canada. 8 of them are considered out of control. And despite the fiery spring season that we saw with wildfires in not only the Northwest Territories, British Columbia, Alberta, and Manitoba, including the Parker Lake fire in northeastern BC that led to evacuations in Fort Nelson, BC, just a few weeks ago. According to officials, we're still doing much better this year compared to this time last year. Take a look at this graphic here because it gives you a sense of what federal officials are talking about. The red line shows the total area burned in 2023. And at the very bottom of the screen, the black line shows this year, just over 500,000 hectares burned so far. And that's way below what we saw this time last year, and it's also below the 10-year average of just over 770,000 hectares burned as a result of wildfires. Now, although currently the fire severity is less than last year, it can change quickly, and that's why they're reminding Canadians to remain vigilant.
Now, I continue to urge all Canadians to be prepared. When it comes to wildfire, it's an important part of their prevention education.
Last summer, Canadians experienced the most destructive forest fire season in Canadian history. The federal government has been working and is working aggressively to ensure that Canadians are prepared to respond to wildfires this season and into the future.
Federal officials saying as we enter the summer months, it is expected to be hotter in the next few weeks. This map here gives you a sense of what they're talking about, particularly in the month of July. Above average to well above average fire activity is possible from Yukon and eastern British Columbia across to western Quebec. The dark red areas on that map indicate where it's expected to be the most intense. Drought conditions are also expected to continue in high-risk regions during the summer months, especially over the prairies. That's according to federal officials. Now, when it comes to resources for Canadians to ensure that they're safe these next few weeks and into the wildfire season across Canada, Fire Smart Canada, officials say, has good tips for Canadians to be prepared, as well as the Government of Canada website. Marianne Dimain, CBC News, Toronto.
For more on this, we've reached Nathan Gillett. He is a research scientist at Environment and Climate Change Canada, and he joins us in Victoria. Nathan, appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.
Hello.
So you heard
Thanks for inviting me.
So you heard our reporter there, federal officials saying the summer months are expected to bring higher than average temperatures with risks of wildfires in the season remaining high. Is that a fair assessment, do you think?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, our seasonal forecasts show that for almost all of Canada, we're expecting warmer than normal conditions this summer.
So there was a lack of precipitation in BC and Alberta from March to May. How do you think that's going to play out in the summer months for these higher risk provinces where we saw so many wildfires last year?
Yeah, wherever there's reduced precipitation, reduced rainfall, of course that's going to increase wildfire risk. And as you mentioned, looking forward into the later parts of the summer, our seasonal forecasts, precipitation forecasts are uncertain, but they tend to predict reduced precipitation over the prairies, over the central parts of Canada. And that will also tend to increase wildfire risk.
So what factors other than drought could determine the severity of this wildfire season?
Well, temperature itself is a big driver. So warmer temperatures will dry out the forests faster, and that will lead to, when wildfires start, that means that they can spread more easily, they can be more intense. So, if we see a warmer than average summer, as is predicted to be likely, and certainly as we saw last year, then that certainly increases the risk of wildfire, the area that we expect to burn.
And what about the impact of last year's fires? Could that play a factor here as more than 100,000 square kilometers of land were burned? It
is something that we have to consider and that studies consider in modeling wildfire. an area that's burned the previous year is unlikely to burn again, or certainly less likely to burn again. But it's not a major factor in terms of considering the wildfire season this year in particular.
Now, I think you told my producer that sometimes climate change can work to draw out more precipitation. Can you explain that and whether you expect that?
Certainly overall across Canada, we expect climate change to intensify wildfires, and the main driver of that is warmer temperatures. It is true that at the same time, we do predict on average an increase in rainfall and precipitation, and in summer, that's particularly in the north of Canada. So that factor does tend to counteract the effect of the warming to some extent. But like I say, overall, we expect the effect of climate change to be to intensify wildfires, especially in the south of Canada.
And that's where you are, and where the above average fire activity is possible. What are you going to be watching for?
Yeah, I mean, I think as the season progresses, we have luckily seen some rainfall in the last month in many regions of Canada, and in the west, it's been near normal conditions, near normal temperatures. But like I say, the prediction is for warm conditions in the rest of the summer. So yeah, we'll be watching how the wildfire situation evolves, and hoping that we don't see a big intensification. Though, as I say, that is what's predicted by our colleagues at Natural Resources Canada.
Nathan, thank you. Nathan Gillett in Victoria.